Wow, wow, wow. The first 2 weeks of June, incredibly dynamic. It looks beautiful. It looks stressful. It looks like we're solving problems. It's really quite amazing. I think the world stage is going to be incredibly exciting and lit up. But yeah, for right now, in this video, I really want to talk about Mars conjunction with Eris. Ooh. On June 1st and 2nd, we're going to see a conjunction between Mars, the god of war, violence, conflict, friction, aggression, and sister Eris, the goddess of discord. It is about to get messy. It's happening in Aries, where probably both of these planets are very, very comfortable. So we know that Mars is in domicile in Aries. Mars entered Aries on April 30th, where Mars is very comfortable doing the reactive thing. Whereas, like, let's say sometimes Mars in different signs is able to like rationalize things like anger or impulse. But in Aries, it's like, no, I'm mad. I'm going to be mad. I'm going to do something about it and we'll fix it later. So, right now, like around that time, that is when we saw like a lot of these peaceful protests going on the campuses start to see violence from police. We saw the images of police, coming in, and we also saw the energy when Mars was at 29 degrees, the critical degree of Pisces, that there was basically like people took over a building in Colombia. We saw a similar Mars at 29 degrees when people took over the White House with the insurrection. So it's very interesting to see how Mars at that 29 critical degree leads people to do like these big, courageous, or what they perceive as like defending acts. Okay. But since then, we have seen like counter protests and things are getting like more violent. We've seen violence escalate in the world for sure. There's like several ongoing conflicts that are going on. So we haven't seen a stop to the conflict, despite all these calls for ceasefire, despite all the things that we've been seeing. Like it still continues with Mars and Aries. So yeah, when we see the involvement of Eris, that could go a couple different directions. Because remember, Eris, even though she is a goddess of discord, we can see her go both ways. We can see Eris wild out without an agenda, like we've seen in the Iliad, where Eris is on the battlefield and she's described as loving the taste of blood and just like everything about it. She's very primal and animalistic and just like raging, right? So we've seen that energy of Eris play out too. But something that has been a delight to see with Eris since her discovery in 2005 is how she's been come to be associated with social justice, especially for minoritized groups or for women who have felt excluded, like their voices aren't heard. Okay. So we've seen Eris in her mythology. She basically is excluded from having a seat at a table. And how much that phrase of having a seat at the table has become part of our lexicon since 2020, when we saw Eris and Pluto meet up by square in the sky. So Eris always wants equality. Eris says, if I'm not going to be invited to that table, I'm going to make my own table over here, but I will not be silenced. And I am not going to take it anymore. Like I can hear Dee Snider, like, we're not going to take it. Like we've been putting up with this for a long time and we're not going to have it anymore. So Eris, I've seen show up a lot with activism, demonstration, and active resistance. Okay, so teaming up with Mars and Aries here, where there's just an impatience. There's an impatience for things. And I remember back in 2020, there was an ongoing Mars retrograde in Aries, with Eris. And I remember the symbol of the brick coming back. And yeah, like there was a lot of destruction. There was a lot of our voices will be heard and we will not be peaceful or silent any longer. So I'm expecting a little bit more of that kind of energy with Mars's conjunction with Eris. The other thing that's going down here is on May 31st, there's going to be a conjunction between Mercury at the end of Taurus and Uranus. So this is going on at the tail end of Taurus. And that also brings like a revolutionary energy. Uranus is like freedom, freedom, freedom. We will not conform, sovereignty. And so Mercury brings like the voice of sovereignty, the voice of ingenuity too. Mercury conjunct Uranus is like, all right, if they're telling us we can't go that way, we're going to find another way. Like there is something else out there. Like Mercury, Uranus is the creation of a completely new idea or pathway or way of doing things. But it also intensifies this sense of anxiousness or alert that's going on. So I think between these two planetary combinations, people are going to be feeling like I'm feeling caged and I got to do something about it. So pay attention to how that's showing up in your life and think about the ways in which you can stand up to things that are not right, that things that don't sit right with you, or things just that have become an overbearing sense of inauthenticity and confinement. What can you do to move that energy? Okay. So think about that. This is part of a very dynamic period, which I talked about in the Venus Kazemi video, and I'll be talking about in my next video about Mercury and Gemini. So stay tuned and we'll put all those puzzle pieces together. And that was your astrology shot of the day, and I'll catch you next time. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today. For more astrology in your world, you can connect with me on all platforms at Astro Catherine. You can also head on over to my website, catherineurban.com, where you can book your next astrology reading. We'll go into depth into your natal chart, your progressions, your profections, your solar return, your transits, and beyond. You can also join my mailing list where you can stay up to date with me on new classes as well as article drops. I look forward to connecting with you, and I'll see you next time.